The Eagles might have saved the season. No, I'm not being dramatic. With Sunday's win, a little bit of too much negativity going on in town. We're going to talk about that, plus be joined by Vinny Curry and Zach Berman coming up next here on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Hello and happy Wednesday to all out there. Welcome into the PHLY Eagles podcast. I am not Bo Wolf. To my left is not Zach Berman. I am Jamie Lynch, joined by Rich Hoffman. We got JP behind the scenes producing us. And of course, the show is brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. And Rich, as the liaison to Bet365 and the great people, I get tasked with cooking up these same-game parlays that they boost for the people every Eagles game. And so far on the year, 2 and 3. I've hit a plus 600 and a plus 550.
2 of 3.
2 of 3, yes. I did lose the week prior because a couple people came up short. But we have hit 2 of 3 here so far with Bet365. So make sure you're looking out for those custom odds boosts every weekend. I cooked up last night's, and it involves the Eagles winning. I'm feeling pretty good about the direction of this team now after Sunday's, I mean, let's call it what it was, miracle win.
It was a miracle win, but as we have kind of talked about over the last few days, it was kind of the perfect talk radio win in that
sure.
The Eagles won the game, but there still was so much to be frustrated about. But like on a play-by-play basis, Jamie, I'm pretty positive about the team right now because like they really dominated the Saints, who completely dominated Dallas the week before. It's just that every kind of high leverage play, every important fourth down decision is not going their way right now.
Sure.
Which is why it was a miracle to win. So with that in mind, I want to be a little more positive today.
They dominated that game.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is they shouldn't have been in the situation where they needed a miracle. They flat out dominated the game. I had the honor of, sitting next to Fran Duffy watching the game. Bo and Vinny were with us. And by the way, Vinny Curry is going to be joining the show at 2:15 today to go over that defensive dominance on Sunday. And Zach Berman is going to join us. Nick Sirianni is talking to the press at 2:15. Practice is at 2:30. So I think we're going to be getting a ZB live from the bubble. I'm not sure there, but Zach Berman is going to join at 2:45. Sitting there watching right from the jump, the first whistle on Sunday, and kind of the reason I'm really optimistic about the direction of the season now was Jalen Carter. From the first whistle of the game, I'm sitting next to Fran and Bo's there and Vinny, and we're kind of like talking. The Saints are like slow chipping away down the field, doing what you expect the Saints to do. But the Eagles kept kind of keeping it in check and never let, a big splash play happen. They were setting edges in the rushing attack. They seemed as though they had a good plan, and it was 3-0, and all of us looked at each other and we were like, yeah, absolutely take that for the first drive. That was a nice showing by the defense. And the reason I feel so good about things is Jalen Carter. This defense was built around some guys having to step up. And there's no more important player to step up for this team and dominate football games than Jalen Carter. And he did it from the first whistle to the end of the game. He made impact plays on the first play and the last play, allowing Brandon Graham to get in there. Jalen Carter, to me, Rich, played one of the most dominant, and this is not hyperbole, one of the most dominant football games I've ever seen an Eagles defender play on Sunday. I thought he's the reason you won that game, and he's a reason why I feel much better about this defense going forward now.
Me too, and it really was like, he wrecked the game completely. Now, I'm curious, Jamie, when you say one of the most dominant Eagles defensive games.
To my dumb naked eye, he was jumping out on most plays. He was getting by a guy. He was collapsing a pocket. He was stepping up in the run game. He just seemed to pop out over and over and over again. And even like Fran and me were just like almost like hitting each other like, dude, Carter again. He just beat his guy. Like he just impacted the play. I think he ended up having 29 effective like rushes or pressures, quarterback pressures, and we'll flash the PFF stat in a second here. He just seemed to affect the play more often than not.
It was one where you actually had to watch all of the plays because, the stats are, I think he hit the quarterback 3 or 4 times. He batted a couple passes down, which were all impressive. No sacks in the game, I believe. But he was affecting every second drop back in a major way. And it was like Fran in his great piece, which you can read if you're a diehard. I believe he put the clip out on Twitter just as like a little teaser for everybody as well.
Wet the beak a little bit.
So Fran had, I believe, 10 plays where he just completely wrecks it. And I think 4 or 5 of them are rushes. 4 or 5 of them are passes. There were a couple where on play action fakes, he's in position for the rush, then sees it's play action. All right, swim move time. Let's get to the quarterback. He was terrific. I'm curious though. Do you have any other games that stand out like over your Eagles fan?
Well, I mean, Brian Dawkins.
Yes.
Like Brian Dawkins is the guy that comes to mind as just like kind of taking over games defensively. I grew up in the Reggie at the back end. I'm old enough to have seen the back end of Reggie and a little bit of Jerome. Reggie White dominated every game he stepped out there. So I'm not comparing him to a Reggie White game because I'm not crazy. But it did feel like that dominant. Fletcher Cox at times had games where he would dominate.
Fletch felt like, and by the way, I respect our coworker so much, but Fletch was a guy who it felt like his consistency and just the fact that he got double teamed so often was something that probably went underrated. But I don't remember quite as many Fletch games.
I said that. I said the only guy defensive tackle wise I could even compare it to was like Jerome Brown. Jerome Brown was a wrecker. Tragically cut way short, so we never even got to like really scratch the surface much with him. But like it was a more dominant game than I ever recall Fletcher Cox seeing. And part of me looks at the Saints, oh God, Clint Kubiak and the mighty Saints. People were talking about them like they were the 72 Dolphins heading into Sunday. It got ridiculous, and that's part of the reason I predicted the Eagles to win on Sunday. I was like, the Saints' love and slurp fest has just gone way overboard.
I think the line shifted like 6 points off of that Monday night game, which is that's too much.
What are they doing not doubling Jalen Carter?
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, obviously, let's be fair. They had some injuries on the
inside.
They
did lose a center and a guard. You're right.
Of their line. But look, that's what you want from a superstar player. If they are giving you replacement level players, even below average, whatever.
Bury their ass.
You got to smoke them, right?
Yeah.
And he did it. So,
yeah, he did. So he's
awesome.
The reason I left here Sunday driving home, and everybody's talking about the Goddard play, and Jalen played great in the second half. Once we'll get to Jalen in a second, and obviously the Saquon play changed the game. You were being shut out to that point, but I was driving home, and all I could think about was Jalen Carter, because to me he's the key to this. Right? Like, you don't have a defensive end that can carry this team and get to the quarterback. We're going to get to Quinyon Mitchell. You have some young foundational type pieces in the secondary, and we'll get to Zach Bond also in a second, who I think has been tremendous. But for this defense to really achieve what they need to be, you need that defensive line dominance. And the only guy I see it coming from is Jalen Carter. So the key, and Vinny talked about this last week with us in the postgame, and we'll ask him about it today, is the consistency. How do you get there? Because we've seen Jalen Carter at points last year look like, the best player in the draft and, should have been defensive rookie of the year, all these things. But then it kind of fades away and it disappears. So, tying it together consistently, I think, is the hardest thing for these young guys to figure out. So we need to see it again this weekend is what I'm saying from Jalen Carter.
Well, and that's where he's got to get to Fletch's level of consistency,
sure.
Where Fletch didn't have a lot of bad games, right?
Yeah.
Even if Fletch was having a down game, he was still affecting the game in terms of, he was getting double teamed. He was still making 1 or 2 plays in there. And Jalen's first 2 games were pretty rough. So
absolutely,
that might just be, the learning curve of a young player who has these amazing physical tools. But it was awesome to see. You mentioned Brian Dawkins, Jamie. The one game that I will always remember, he had they're calling it the quadrifecta game when against the Texans. It was at I believe it was
this the interception, the fumble recovery, and the forced fumble game?
Interception, fumble recovery, and then he scored a touchdown on a fake punt as well, where he completely dominated the game. Now look, the Texans, I remember it was, I believe,
was that David Carr?
It was David Carr's rookie year too, where he was just getting plastered every other
most
game.
sacks in NFL history.
So
at the time.
maybe there's something about going up against a car that really just leads to a great Eagles individual defensive performance.
Yeah,
but that was good to see. So that's one thing where, like, look, we can talk about Sirianni.
Oh, Jalen Carter has me smiling ear to ear,
and the weird decision making. But having Jalen Carter play at that level was awesome.
It was excellent. And let's get to another positive thing, because the Eagles are 2-1, and I said to the guys in the postgame show, like, I don't want to throw around hyperbole and fake takes, but, like, to me, that was potentially a Brian Westbrook punt return type of win. Like, because if you go 1-2 right there, Nick Sirianni's ass is on the griddle. He's going to be hearing it. The guy cried in the press conference in week 3. Like, that tells you how much the pressure was ramped up.
It's funny. I've been looking at Anthony's show where he's talked about the Phillies the last 2 days. I think Sirianni is leading the show those 2 days. And I think that's not just Anthony's show. That's everybody's show. Yeah. You might be leading the Phillies show with Sirianni getting his ass grilled.
So, like, I think from the element of, oh man, 1-2, you lost another NFC game. All of a sudden, every week is this a must-win game?
Would have been so bad for him, man.
Yeah, Sirianni could have been possibly fired by the bye week if Jeffrey Lurie got sick of it. So I think from a momentum kind of standpoint, last week's win changed the whole season and the narrative surrounding it and the pressure on the guys in the building. So, it was a huge, huge win. All right, some more positives from the game, Rich. Zach Bond has been – if Vic Fangio – and Zach Bond was the guy that Vic Fangio wanted and made put my hand on the table in free agency, go get that guy. Then Vic Fangio is smelling roses right now, because Zach Bond looks like he's had 2 great games out of 3 now. For a guy that's never played a position, he's got me somewhat optimistic about the linebacker position.
If Vic picked him and that was the only pick he made, he is drafting every linebacker.
Yeah, seriously.
For the next 5 years for the Eagles. I don't even care if he retires as defensive coordinator. Vic, we are keeping you on the payroll so you can draft the linebackers. And Jamie, there were 2 plays. There was one against Green Bay, and there was also the 4th and short against New Orleans, where Zach Bond had 2 of the most violent collisions I've seen. Like, he is taking on, I believe it was a tight end against New Orleans, coming over to block him. It's funny. He's a linebacker who sometimes those guys get blocked by a tight end, but it's the old Chris Long thing where he forces the Patrick Robinson pick 6 in the NFC Championship game. It's like, you're blocking Chris Long with the tight end. It's the same thing as Brock Purdy in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, Kyle Shanahan, you dumbass. Don't.
I know Brock Purdy got hurt, and that's unfortunate. Yeah. It wasn't a dirty hit, but, like, stop blocking Hassan Reddick with the tight end or whatever. But so Zach Bond as a linebacker is like, I don't know, blocking him with the tight end. Yeah, okay, Chris Lidstrom can get him to the ground. But if you block him with the tight end, he has knocked a couple guys right on their butts, man. Just as physical and, I don't know, as a concussion uncle half the time. I was like loving it. Like, it was within the rules, great hits. So I think when Devin White, when the news breaks that he is not traveling to Brazil, your first thought is, oh boy, here we go again.
My first thought was that of every Eagles fan out there was like, oh, God, here we go again with the linebackers being a disaster.
And so you're right. One of the 3 games, I thought Zach Bond kind of stunk against Atlanta.
And they did a good job cutting him, as Fran pointed out in his film review.
And Nakobe Dean as well. But to get 2 out of 3, like, really strong games from both linebackers, I am absolutely thrilled with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And hopefully that one down game, like, maybe... Obviously, Zach Bond, who is leading the NFL in tackles, I believe. I think
he's up there. He's top 3, I believe, for sure.
Is right. I'm not expecting lights out games every week from him, but if we can get those down games to be just like kind of below average, then I think we're really cooking with gas, because again, he offers the degree of, and this is going to infuriate Bo as ZB is pumping his fist. He offers you a degree of positionless football.
I love positionless football,
and lets you get up on the line. Anyway, I've been really impressed with that guy and just the physicality, and it just seems honestly like the instincts to play linebacker.
Yeah,
that's the hard thing for linebacker, right?
Sure.
At defensive end, Jalix Hunt, you want to take a project. Okay, I think you can teach that guy if he has the physical gifts to rush the passer. Linebacker's tougher. You got to be able to make those split-second decisions. If you're half a second
and
late,
knowing what you're looking at, and picking up the reads.
I don't care what your shuttle time is, your 40 time you're out of the play. He's been really good to start. So that's another thing on that.
Yeah, and we'll get to these positives defensively with Vinny Curry in 1 second. But let me tell you about some of our friends here at PHLY. And this friend, Empire Today, they've been around for decades. Everybody knows the jingle, Empire Today. If you go to empiretoday.com/PHLY right now, you can get $350 off new floors. And nobody likes going to those big box stores. You can't get service. You get overwhelmed by products. You can't find somebody to talk to. Well, Empire Today, they strive at the at-home convenience. So they'll come right to your house, under your roof, in your walls, and they'll bring their virtual floor designer with you. And they're not going to overwhelm you with thousands of products to choose from where you're swimming. You're mentally swimming. You don't know what you want. You don't know what's best for your home. Well, Empire Today is only going to bring you the stuff they would put in their own homes. And with their virtual floor designer, they'll show you what it looks like right there, bang, right in your room. They're the best, and they service their own warranty, so you're not going to have to track down some manufacturer if something does go wrong. But the at-home shopping convenience, come on, who likes going to stores? So schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive that $350 off discount when they use the promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See EmpireToday.com. And you're talking about at-home convenience. Well, one of my main stores as a homeowner has always been the Ace True Value store. I love it. I go to the one in Orland. Sometimes I'll stop by the Roxborough one. Sometimes Lafayette Hill. Depends where I am on the road. And guess what? Ace is always the best because you walk in and there's like 3 guys that are retired contractors that have seen everything on the job site, know every answer to every question you have, can tell you what products you need, can walk you right through it then and there on the spot. Well, now that same convenience is coming right to your front door. Ace Hardware now has home services. Got a leaky pipe? Got an air conditioning problem? Got a faucet? I don't mess with electricity and plumbing at my house. That's just above my pay grade, and I always fear I'm going to make it worse. So I'll just call the pros at Ace Hardware Home Services so they can come right to my door and fix it for me because I trust Ace Hardware implicitly, and you should too. So visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get you started on your next project. All right, I believe we have our man with us. We're recalibrating some cameras, and our buddy Vinny Curry will be joining us momentarily to talk about Sunday.
That's all good. I got one other thing.
You got another positive for me.
I got a few others, but I guess we'll get it going.
We'll filibuster until Vinny's here.
You mentioned the great Saquon run, and I think what he has blown me away. And
fastest speed he's reached on the field in 5 years, Rich. He looks like he's back to rookie level Saquon.
Well, I remember in the Rose Bowl against USC, he had a couple of those. He had the one outrageous run where he jukes a safety out, he jukes another linebacker out, and cuts back all the way. And I remember Chris Fowler just giving the great call, Saquon Barkley, say goodbye or say bye-bye or whatever. Yeah. So it was an amazing run. I mean, it really has felt like that, Jamie. But the one thing I've loved about Saquon is he's given you the home runs, but he's not like he's not Kyle Schwarbering it. Like he's not like swinging for the fences and striking out as well.
Is it because he actually has blocking to follow?
I think that's some of it, and I think that might just be the explanation. But I think for a lot of Saquon's career, the rap on him has been awesome player. The one downside is that he will run into some negative plays trying to hit those home runs.
I don't recall too many through 3 games at all.
No, and I looked it up on Pro Football Reference. Bo always references success rate as an offense, but success rate as a running back stat, which is basically like, do you get the yards that equal a positive play? So that's 40% of the yards you need on first down. What is it? It's 60% on second down. And then on third down, you got to actually get the first down. And Saquon's numbers this year, he's up to 56%, which is high for him. His career average is 43% on those runs. So it feels like to me, like the 60-yard run was amazing. And you're right. It felt like Brian Westbrook because that's just one player just making an incredible play basically out of nowhere to save your bacon in that game. But I also have loved him, like when he gets decent blocking or even below average blocking. I watch those runs and I think, Saquon's going to get 5 or 6 on this. Like he's gonna find enough of a crease, put his head down, and he's going to fall forward. And he's really blown my mind. And it's I love that I can say I'm taking the L on the value of elite running backs. Like I was a big don't pay the running back guy. Now I don't want to completely say that the Eagles are completely right yet, because the only counter is can they stay healthy? And Christian McCaffrey is right now he's doing the late career Kobe treatment where he's in Germany.
Oh, tell me about it. I took him #1 in my big money fantasy league, and I regret every second of it.
And that's a guy who was one of the most dominant players in football the last couple of years. 668 regular season touches for McCaffrey.
So I actually have this in my notes. It's funny you bring this up. If you extrapolate the Eagles season right now, the pace they're on, I believe if you play through the Super Bowl, which is the goal here, right? We want to win a Super Bowl. Saquon Barkley would be up around 580 touches. Now, look, I was a guy on Sunday that when Kenny Gainwell blew a blocking assignment on 3rd down in the first half and Hurts gets sacked, I'm like, why isn't Saquon in there? He's a great blitz picker. And on the other hand, I go, well, you can't run the guy into the ground 580 times.
That's too many. That's not going to work.
So, like, it's just the age-old conflict of, like, I'm kind of a Kenny Gainwell hater a little bit. I don't want to see him, but at the same time, I need Saquon Barkley to be there at the end of the year, to be there in the playoffs for you. So it's an internal, fight amongst myself of play him every down, but also preserve him somehow.
Yeah, no, I completely understand where you're coming from with that, because I'm terrified at how many touches he already has. Now, that said, for the first few weeks, you don't have AJ for the last 2 weeks. You don't have Devontae probably this week.
I would assume Devontae and Lane both are going to miss this week with the bye. If, concussions, if you can give yourself that extra, bye week and basically 2 more weeks off of your brain, like that's the smart thing to do.
I think they did a similar thing with Lane in 2022 when he had a concussion too. It was right around the time of the bye week.
This is his 4th.
Yeah, it's a lot. So it's scary. So I hope those guys are healthy.
I almost don't want to see him play.
Those things are scary. Yeah, because then you get the extra week off, and if they need another week after that, that's fine too.
No joke, man.
So that's no joke. So while this is the case, and they are so lacking for weapons on the outside, like it's. I think you just have to give him the ball. And I think one more week of this with the bye coming up.
Sure.
Go ahead. Because I don't – one game of running him essentially into the ground, I think you can deal with that. It's what Nick Sirianni has said, too. It's like we're trying to win every specific game. At some point, winning every specific game is going to have to require not as much Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
But for now, I think it's
But in a game where you're lining up starting wide receiver on the outside of Johnny Wilson.
Yeah, give him the rock.
Johnny Harris Wilson, Campbell.
Johnny Wilson ain't open. Give him the rock.
And Britton Covey goes to the IR, so he's not even there. Like, yeah, Saquon Barkley and Dallas Goedert, you're going to have to lead us to an offensive victory on Sunday.
Bo mentioned the other day, it's like the bus meme where the fan is like, the one fan is worried about the touches, and then the other boy's like, that boy nice, like whatever. It's also kind of like the bell curve meme too, where the smart and the dumb person are saying the same thing. I am right there. That boy nice. I think I'm probably the dumb person at this point.
Oh, I'm totally the dumb person at this point.
That boy nice.
But once you get past this and everybody's healthy again, then it's like, all right, let's go from that 25 touches a game down to like 16, 17 and try and take a little bit of wear off the tires. Vinny will be joining us shortly. But let's get back to some more positives, because I think there was a bunch of them that kind of didn't set in Sunday. Like, it was like, okay, we got the win. We can take a deep exhale now. Another thing I was thinking about driving home, Quinyon Mitchell had a really tough assignment with Shaheed on Sunday. Clint Kubiak, oh my God, the Saints offense, it's it's unbeatable. We didn't hear his name once.
No.
And when you're not hearing a cornerback's name, we'll talk to Vinny about this. Look, if you don't have a great defensive line, a great secondary can help that defensive line out. If you don't have a great secondary, a great defensive line can help that secondary out. Right now, it seems like, Jalen Carter, obviously, notwithstanding, Quinyon Mitchell might be something special. This guy, for a rookie to be shutting down guys in week 3 of their careers is not commonplace. Usually when somebody steps in and looks the part right away, they're a special player.
Yeah, he's been great. And I was wondering, Jimmy, when do you think the last time the Eagles had, and I'm not saying Quinyon is there yet, 3 games does not make a career.
Lito and Sheldon.
He needs to show more. When's the last time they had, were either of those guys a legit
Pro Bowl type?
No, let's even go all pro, like a top 5 or 6. cornerback.
Lito and Sheldon, as good as they were not that. They were steady.
They were both solid
football
and there
players.
Was, if you pair them together, there's
you'd have to go Troy Vincent, probably. Asante Samuel.
Asante was really good for a couple
years. And Asante, Bo's right. He's getting absolutely screwed on this Hall of Fame discussion.
It was so funny. Asante got so much crap from the local fans in some cases for good reason, because he didn't like
the risk taker and he didn't like the tackle.
He didn't like the tackle. But man, those risks paid off. And if you intercepted the ball as much as he did, that's a damn good player.
Yeah. But to your point, the Eagles are not rich in cornerback dominant history. And I think Quinyon Mitchell, I've seen some people, whether it's in our Discord or in the chat here, be like, Quinyon Mitchell, this guy, doesn't look, and it's like, dude, you're not hearing his name. That's a good thing for a cornerback. All right, there's a lot of defensive positives to take from Sunday, and we had some ECAM issues here with our next guest. But let's welcome him into the show. It is Vinny Curry. What's up, Vin?
What's up, fellas?
How you doing, man? I like that cap. That's a nice cap right there.
Yeah. How you guys doing? Can y'all hear me good?
Yeah, you sound great, man.
Good.
Vinny, we were just talking about the defensive positives from Sunday, and you talked about it 2 weeks ago. Everybody on that defensive line is going to know what needs to be done. Uncle Vic is going to say, you guys got to win your one-on-ones. And I can't stop thinking about Jalen Carter's performance on Sunday, Vinny. Just straight up one of the most dominant games I can recall from an Eagles defensive lineman. Talk about the reverberating effects of that, how it affects Jordan Davis, how it allows Josh Sweat to maybe get a little looser on the outside, whatever it may be. Walk us inside what a performance like that does to a D-line.
Oh, man, you guys got the momentum of him winning in there every one-on-one matchup he had. He was demanding respect. And then it goes when we was in the studio, when we was talking about, you asked me, hey, so when you get there, on that Monday and Tuesday, and you guys are watching film, how did you pop up? And he popped up all over that film. And that's why he was so passionate and emotional at the end of that game, because he know for a fact that he answered the call. He heard all of us telling him, yo, we need him to play when we know he's capable of playing. And to see that dominant performance that was crazy. And then it opened up other things for everybody else. And then I heard you talk about Quinyon Mitchell. So he was taking his guy out the game, which was making everything tie in together, man. What a wonderful performance, by that defense, especially the way the Saints has been rolling throughout the weeks.
Vinny, I wanted to ask you about a guy that you played with, BG, who makes that final play, and it obviously reminded me of the Super Bowl, right? When you bump him inside and he makes that strip sack or whatever. Was that something he did a lot under Jim Schwartz when you were playing with him? And was that what is that like? 'Cause I'm sure you've probably done it as well when you're an edge rusher and then you get the pass rushing chance against the guard.
Oh man, B is a jack of all trades, man, and he's been playing phenomenal lights out football for the first 3 weeks. But to see that play and to there's we call it a walk off. It's like when an NBA player hit that walk off shot,
yeah,
and then the crowd go crazy, just walk off. It was like one of those for a defensive lineman. All he does is come up clutch. And those type of performances like that, man. Brandon Graham's definitely have the clutch factor. He definitely got that clutch gene.
Are you surprised he's still going at this level at this age?
Say it again. I lost you guys for a second.
You're good. Sorry about that. Are you surprised that he's still going at this level at this age?
Nah, man. Nah. Listen, that's one person who found the fountain of youth. I told him, man, we living through you. You got to keep going. You might. I said, you at 15, keep to 20.
Yeah, I guess if there's ever a model of being positive every second of every day and infecting your team with a smile, Brandon Graham has found it. Vinny, now you've probably been in this situation before. Offensively, they're going to be down. I'm not expecting Devontae Smith and Lane Johnson to be back on Sunday. Concussions are no joke, so you want those guys to get right. Offensively, you're in a situation where Paris Campbell and Johnny Wilson could be starting wide receivers for you on Sunday. What's it like as a defensive player going into a game like this on the road again, knowing the offense is beat up? Maybe they don't have their heavy hitters there. Defensively, how much pressure does that put on you guys? Is it just win your one-on-ones? Is it as simple as that? Walk us through the mentality of a defensive player going into a week like this.
So we're gonna speak from the defensive line standpoint. So we know that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers has been struggling on the offensive line. So therefore, there's a little bit of added, fuel here that, all it takes is, the rotation guys in the defensive line to really control the volume of that game. So we need another consistent performance like we just saw this past weekend, against another NFC South team, and then vice versa, with Devontae Smith and them being out. I got one word, and you know what that is. Say, woo! You know, Feed that man. He's playing unbelievable. And it's crazy because I was like, damn, you know what? You ever seen somebody that was a rival come to the Eagles and kind of don't fit in jail with the guys or don't fit in the locker room? It's
DeMarco
like
Murray.
he's been in his whole
Excuse me.
career.
Sorry.
He it's like he's been here that his whole career and he fits the mold, as a Philadelphia Eagle player, man. I'm loving it, man. I'm loving what I've seen out of him, and he looked like he's just back to himself, man.
Vinny, I'm curious going back to the Super Bowl year because Doug Peterson famously he was going for it on fourth down all the time. And as a defense who either, you could say that is a sign of trust in the defense that, okay, if we don't get this, we're going to have to take this over. But you're also kind of on the edge of your seat where, hey, we might score a touchdown here if this play hits. But if not, we got to be ready and go back on the field. What was it like just having a coach like that when you're on the defensive side of the ball, when he's just saying, we're going for it pretty much every time?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say during that whole season, we only had two high-scoring games, which was the Super Bowl and then that game that Carson tore his ACL against the Rams, where we won in overtime, I think it was, or at the last second.
Those were both high-scoring games. Those were in the 30s, yeah.
Right. So when the defense was balling that way, the way they were, and keeping opponents, out the end zone, man, Doug didn't care. We were just like, yo, we'll go for it. But we loved it though because it was a challenge. Jim used to say, "You jokers better, you better bend but not break." I'm telling you, he will go nuts on everybody. And it'll rub off. It'll rub off on amongst all of us. And that creates a culture where we don't care where we at. We gonna ball. We gonna keep them out the end zone.
Vinny,
So,
are you Oh, go ahead.
I said, so just going for it on fourth down. That's just the Philadelphia culture and the Philadelphia way now. It says a lot to the defense, but the defense, they're capable of rising up to that occasion, man. You know what I'm saying? Just bulk down.
So you guys liked it?
Loved it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Vinny,
they used to say you're gonna earn your money.
we talked briefly about him, but Quinyon Mitchell, the secondary, Slay kind of got tossed there, but had a good game otherwise. Reed Blankenship, you've talked about him. He was one of PFF's highest graded performers this week. What are you seeing from the secondary? Just whether it be Quinyon, Ed, CJ, GJ, who was talking his smack after the game. What are you seeing from the secondary that has you encouraged for the rest of the year?
Oh man, they gel together like they're going to be. I ain't gonna say they can. They're going to be something special. With this going into week 4, what we're seeing here is the beginning of something very special there. The energy behind that secondary, obviously starting with CJ, Slay being out there and Quay, he took, look, that one, what was a 38, 40-yard play that would have been a touchdown that he broke up. Like, that was very impressive to me, you know what I mean? And like, he completely, took his guy out the game and understood his assignment, with the trust of the great safeties between Blankenship and CJ. I mean, I think we're witnessing something special there with that secondary. And I told you that week 1. I said, they're looking something special back there. They looking like something special back there.
He's been good. One question I had for you, because Fran has kind of brought this up, and obviously you know more about this than all of us. I mean, that was a different type of defensive game, just because New Orleans was in heavy personnel and the Eagles were able to stack the line. If this is kind of more of a normal game where they're playing 3 receivers, what can the Eagles take from how they were able to shut down that running game so beautifully in that game and transfer it over to this game with kind of different formations and something that they've struggled with so far this year?
Well, with Chris and Mike Evans, those guys this week, as much as we, given the secondary from this week's performance, they flowers, they definitely, have to put back-to-back games together. That's why
Yeah.
I'm saying consistency in Philadelphia is very, very important. You know, if they thought last game was a must-win, this game is just as important because you're getting ready to go into a bye week after. So this is going to be the last thing on all our minds until they come back. So they're definitely going to have the work cut out for them, but I think they will rise to the occasion.
Vinny, what was a common Vinny Curry bye week like? Was that just get with Noah and the family and chill at the house? Did you like to go anywhere to kind of mentally check out? Like what would you do?
No, 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 no. All of us was together still, like we're still meetings. Obviously not as much longer in the
Sure.
building. We would definitely try to at least take 2 days to, dissect wherever the point we was at during the season, and then just get away from it from a little while. Whether some people got a lot of their own PT trainers, just
Hmm.
to help they body back to what I mean to high level playing the performance. Because think about it, they come from Paris, then they play another night game, then it was a night. Those guys need some rest. So. Uh, before they can go and think about rest, they got to take care of business in Tampa Bay because, like I said, it's going to be the last thing on all our minds. So they, they're going to act like this is a playoff game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And last one for you. Jalen Carter, dominated Sunday. We talked about that. What's the hardest part about being consistent on the defensive line? Is it like how do we get this week in, week out from Jalen Carter? Is that just part of the learning curve, the consistency of it all?
Well, I would say this, and I would say this to Jalen's defense. What he did now was shed light on the rest of the defensive line because if he's getting double teamed, everybody else is going to have a big old spotlight on him. Like, whoa, 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 what's going on here? So I would say what he did was make people around him get ready to elevate their game this coming Sunday. Because if not, we all going to know who they sliding to, who they're going to try to double team because of the performance he just had. And that's what
So if he doesn't
Fletcher.
show up, you expect maybe some more double teams go his way, maybe Josh Sweat, maybe a Huff.
Absolutely. Yeah, yes, yes. And that's what, Jim used to always preach that, I'm pretty sure Vic preaches it, with the rotation, with the defensive line rotation like that, which is a Philadelphia culture way that, kind of help jumpstart the rotation of defensive linemen is we know if this guy get double teamed, do we know now there should be at least three one-on-ones, and out of three, two better be winning if the tight end don't come down on that end. And you don't want to be that guy especially going into the bye week, that keep rewinding and saying, what happened here? Rewinding, and then people are kicking, smacking computers and everything because of when you're one-on-one and they double teaming your best player. So you
Well,
never
doesn't
want to be that
Sirianni
guy.
keep like accounting like scoreboard on the film review? Like, didn't I read something like that like 2 years ago that he has like some kind of point system that he uses?
And yeah, and I can tell you this: I want to be part of that point system. You know what I mean? Because everybody watches it, and that's one thing about the Eagles organization. Everybody watches the film after the game, whether it's Mr. Laurie to Howie to you don't want to be this guy. Well, hold on a second. Hey, come here for a second. And then he come. Look at it. Look at it. You don't want to be that guy, man. And so that's what you can expect our defensive line going into Tampa, that I'm pretty sure the rest of those guys can be playing with their hair on fire because of the performance that Jalen just put on and displayed on screen.
That's awesome. Vinny, great stuff. You're going to be back on Sunday as the boys head to Tampa. As you said, hands full with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Baker Mayfield now all of a sudden. So another tough one on Sunday. You'll be here on the post-game show with us. Really looking forward to it.
Man, appreciate you, man. And like I said, the defensive line, man, they should be, licking their chops with, that the way that the offensive line has been struggling with the Buccaneers. So
Love it. All right, we'll see you on Sunday, Vinny. Be well.
See ya.
take it easy, man. Thank y'all for having me.
Later, Vinny. That's great. I love a guy that was in the locker room just last year, like he knows these guys, trying to get his analysis every week is awesome.
I love it. Wine Cellar Wednesdays.
Yeah, we should. And we are going to be joined in about 5 minutes by Zach Berman, who I believe practice just started 9 minutes ago. Nick Sirianni spoke to the media at 2:15. Maybe there will be some injury updates, Rich, but I would almost recommend, if they were listening to my medical advice, to just say, "Hey, Lane and Devontae, take the 2 weeks. We'll see after the bye.
We'll see where you're at after the bye, and
Yeah.
you want to take a week.
We
after
got this guy named Saquon Barkley who can go win us a game, and Jalen Carter.
It really turns into, like, obviously it's a revenge game. Like, I want to beat the hell out of the Bucs.
Sure.
That was so bad last year. I mean, especially because at the beginning of last year, they have one of their most dominant games of the year, where that was probably Jalen Carter's second best game of his career.
Yeah, probably.
Now. He's something about week 3 and Jalen Carter. He just has it going. Anyway, he was great in that game. And then, I mean, my God, like they got the luckiest break in the world, because that Eagles team was one of the worst playoff teams ever. I mean,
it was really bad.
Were falling apart.
I was down there and just did not have any sort of confidence at all. But what I do have confidence in is it never being ordinary over at Bet365. Make sure you're following us along on Bet365 this year, because we're going to be doing custom same-game parlay Eagles boosts. So I'm going to give a same-game parlay to the wonderful people at Bet365. They're going to take those odds and boost it up on behalf of us here at PHLY. You can get in on the action. They have over 90 million users worldwide. They stream over 780,000 events every year. They pioneered live in-game betting. And last night, an awesome story from our Discord channel. Because Bet365, when it's never ordinary by that, I mean, they have the best early payout offers across sports gambling. Because a guy in our Discord last night said, "Hey, does anybody know why I just got cashed out in the 6th inning of the Cubs-Phillies game?" And I said, "Yeah, it's because the Cubs went up 7 runs. And if you go up 7 runs in baseball, boom, automatically cashed out. Doesn't matter what the final results are." Same across hockey, basketball, and football. They have a parameter. If those hit a certain amount at any point in the game, you get cashed out right then and there on the spot. You don't have to wait for the final whistle. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when they bet just $5. Use the code PHLY365 to sign up, deposit $10, and place a bet for $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. Bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. So, download the Bet365 app. Use that code PHLY365 when you sign up. Get $200 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Whatever the moments, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Jamie, I want to tell you about our friends at Glatt Hair Restoration. PHLY listeners can use code PHLY for $20 off. And, I know our friend Zach Berman has made some hair comments on this show that may or may not have led to Bo Wolf wearing a wig for an episode. And look, I know I'm losing my hair. It's a very normal thing. Nothing to be ashamed about. But Jamie, here is the wonderful thing. You do not need to resort to such tactics as Bo Wolf. You can go talk to the folks at Glatt. Anyone can buy equipment and say they do hair restoration, but only Glatt Hair Restoration offers decades of proven results using an innovative approach and delivered by leaders in the industry. And here's the good thing, Jamie. Like, each patient, they receive a complimentary one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing with the hair loss and the hair restoration. Bald is now optional. If you want to improve how you look and how you feel about yourself, Glatt Hair is the right treatment for you. Regain your confidence. Visit glatthairmctr.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started. And as a reminder, PHLY listeners can use code PHLY for $20 off.
Love it. Also love that we'll be joined momentarily by our own Zach Berman live from the bubble. I love a bubble check-in with ZB. But he did just tweet at 2:32. The Eagles are going through their walkthrough. No A.J. Brown, no Devontae Smith, no Lane Johnson. Mekhi Becton has a cast on his hand, but is practicing. Before we get to Zach, let's just throw some more bouquets around since we're doing the positives.
Should we get Mekhi the Runyon Club?
Yeah, I love somebody trolled Runyon yesterday online because he's the enforcer of the penalties
it's
now.
Unbelievable.
And somebody was like, "Wait, isn't this you?" And it's like a late clean of the pile by Runyon just flying over.
I love John Runyon.
Yeah,
but not the cleanest player in the history.
The irony
of
of him being the rules enforcer now is hilarious.
I think it's the same thing in hockey. I guess JP does a lot of the Flyer shows. It feels like the guy who handles the discipline in hockey.
Donald Brashear is now like
it's
the
not
rules
Donald
enforcer.
Brashear, but it's always a guy who is like a big fighter.
A goon, baby,
Matthew Barnaby.
Yeah, I don't know. That is very funny.
It's very ironic.
I guess because John Runyon was in Congress. Now he's official now. It is funny. That shot of him diving across
so funny.
To block the guy, basically spear the guy.
But Fred Johnson and Tyler Steen. I mean, Jason Kelce tweeted about the one penalty that Fred Johnson picked up. They took it from a 3rd and short to a 3rd and long. And it wasn't even Fred Johnson's fault. Apparently he missed the tap from Juergens to et cetera. So you can't even fault them. But those two guys stepped in a really tough spot on the road in a loud environment and performed really well. JP, did you say we're good with Zach? Not yet? Okay, we'll hear from Zach momentarily. But I thought Fred Johnson and Tyler Steen were tremendous on Sunday.
Did you see the video of him in the locker room? Where
he's almost crying, yeah.
Where he talked about the crying. But in the background, you can see that he's a pretty popular guy on the team. And as he's getting interviewed, talking about almost crying on the Saquon run, which is great because he was almost crying, and then Jordan Mailata was just making fun of Dallas Goedert on the other one. As I tweeted out yesterday, the best Eagles mic'd up moment since Chris Long was sincerely trying to convince the Broncos offensive tackle that no, he did not suck as the Eagles were destroying them.
Yeah.
Chris Long, pretty good dude.
Yeah, if you missed it, Jordan Mailata, I believe, is screaming at Dallas Goedert to unhitch the trailer. Come on, you slow MFer.
Come on, son.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm actually really happy right now. Look, it was very funny stuff.
That's Australian culture. They're the happiest people in the world. They're the greatest people, but they curse like crazy.
Oh, when I lived in Australia for 6 months, and when my buddy picked me up at the airport, the expletives I heard out of his mouth from the airport to where we were staying, I was blown away.
It's just normal. We think Philadelphia is like that, but Australia, no, they'll do it with a smile on their face. But anyway, in that Fred Johnson clip where he's talking,
very cool clip,
where he's talking about it, the players in the background now they're off screen, so you don't know exactly who it is. They're all just saying, "Hell yeah, Fred! Hell yeah, Fred!" So clearly, a very popular guy, a guy who has been on the practice squad for a while and kind of worked his way up.
He just seemed happy to be playing football. Like, I think he realized, like, wow, I just kind of went through 3 years of Andy Dufresne crawling out of the poop tunnel.
Yeah.
And now he's, kind of on the other side.
Fred couldn't fit through that tunnel.
That's a big dome.
He's too big. Yeah.
He's got a huge head. I mean, huge man. But, like, when I was watching that video, I was just like, damn, that is a large human being.
He would have to find another way to escape the premises. But luckily, he's just a football player. Yeah. So it's good.
So and another proud graduate of Stoutland U, because I would imagine you get a game like that on tape, Rich, you can go make some money in this league.
Absolutely. At that position, I mean, that's a big
Everybody's
V-type.
looking for it. Yeah.
That's a big V-type performance. So, Jamie, I think that's an overall positive that we were wondering about a little bit. I know Bo, when I talked with him during training camp, during preseason, and it wasn't just Bo, it was kind of a national talking point. It's like, you lose Jason Kelce, who is not just retiring after a retirement tour, was still basically the best center in football and really controlled a lot of things. People wondered, like, okay, yeah, the left side of the line is still elite. You still have Lane Johnson, who is one of the best, I think, 15 players in football. Like, I think he's been that important for a long time.
Yeah.
And it just goes underrated because, the fact that they leave him one-on-one and he takes the opposing defensive end out of the game, it just doesn't get noticed quite as much as the other positions. But people wondered, like, is this offensive line going to take a step back from just write them in as one of the top 2 or 3 units every year to, all right, maybe they're like a little bit above average, but that's a huge difference. I got to say, the early returns have been awesome. And that works a couple of ways here, Jamie, is that, we wondered about, okay, Cam Juergens was kind of sneaky, not that good at guard last year.
Sure.
You move him over to center, okay, but he's still got to handle all the Jalen Hurts is handling the calls, right? It's certainly more work in terms of processing and getting all those things right.
And snap to blocking is a whole different element that he did all last year, like all of that. It's a much harder job.
And then the guy they're slotting in right next to him, we had no idea if he was going to be any good.
No.
We didn't know who it was going to be. I mean, to go back to Nick Sirianni at owners meetings being like, oh yeah, Tyler Steen's on the team. And then it ends up being Becton, who's really never played guard, sliding over. So you have those first two games where I would say those two guys in particular, like some of those combo blocks, like they're just moving guys, right? Like, as much credit as we want to give Saquon.
How happy is Saquon to be here?
They're opening up legit holes for him.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. But the other reason people were worried about the offensive line, Jamie, is like, people weren't sure the depth was going to be the same as previous years. And now, hey, maybe it might not be. Like, not having Lane Johnson for multiple like a decent chunk of the season, that's not a way to win games. Like that's not going to work out. But I got to say, Fred Johnson and Tyler Steen, the job they did coming in from him and just being able to move the ball up and down the field, handling stunts, all of those things, those guys were awesome. And that was a great sign.
Yeah. Let's check in. Let's go live. You're looking live at the NovaCare bubble, and Zach Berman joins the show. Zach, we just saw your tweet. We'll talk about Nick in 1 second, but why don't you just update the people? No AJ, no Devontae, no Lane. Mekhi Becton has a cast on the hand and is practicing. What's your takeaway from the team out on the field here?
Yeah, so the big news of course, it's the wide receivers, and that's what we're going to monitor throughout the week here is Devontae Smith. It's really out of the Eagles' hands. Concussion protocol. There's stages to that where you can progress through. Not out of the question that a player is back within a week for that, but it often takes more than a week. So we'll see. I think back, the former Eagles trainer Rick Burkholder said, if you see one concussion, you see one concussion, right? And so they're not all the same, but we'll see how he progresses. A.J. Brown, it's going on to the third week here. This was expected to miss a few weeks. They have their bye next week. We'll see how that happens. My guess is the Eagles go into this game without both of them. It's still early in the week. By the way, I should also say the Eagles had a walkthrough or have a walkthrough today as opposed to a typical practice. And that's because of the way they came out of the game. Dallas Goedert did not appear to be out there during the stretching portion. I probably wouldn't raise alarms to that right now. Early in the week, sometimes players, especially coming off of physical games, get backed off a bit. We'll see what happens there. But then you mentioned Lane Johnson, concussion protocol, fourth concussion since I've covered Lane Johnson, fourth documented one. So he was at practice on the side. He didn't have his helmet. We'll see kind of how he progresses through. The fact that he was observing at practice could, in theory, be interpreted as a good sign. Mekhi Becton, like you mentioned, was in a cast, was practicing, and so he had that finger injury. We'll see how he looks, but the fact that he was stretching and practicing with the team should be a good sign.
ZB, whether it's what Nick said or just your own analysis, what do you think that means for Saturday or for Sunday when you have so many question marks for so many of your big players?
Yeah, so I asked Nick specifically about wide receiver because he's been saying for 2+ years this offense is built around A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. And so the biggest football cliche is next man up, but there's no next man up that's like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, right? And so is it functionally a different offense or do you have to kind of reinvent things? And he acknowledged that you can't say next man up in this case, but the next guy who's up, you have to kind of tailor the offense to who he is. So whether that's Johnny Wilson, that is Johnny Wilson, it's Jahan Dotson. I imagine Paris Campbell gets elevated from the practice squad. It wouldn't surprise me if John Ross is a potential elevation from the practice squad. It's a much different offense, right? A much different offense. And you think back during the 2 years since A.J. Brown's been here, it was really the last 3 quarters of that Eagles-Giants Week 18 game last year when they didn't have A.J. and Devontae. And then the fourth quarter of this past game, the Saints game. That Giants game did not look good. I would say the Saints game here did not look good other than that 61-yard catch that that Dallas Goedert had, and maybe they can keep getting those rub routes. And as Rich wrote about, did a great job in the newsletter writing about it. So yeah, that's to me is the biggest concern going into this week. I get whenever Lane Johnson's down, it's a concern and it should be a concern. Fred Johnson, he's been here. He's a guy they like. He's not Lane Johnson, but he would be the starter if Lane doesn't play. But I'm curious to see what this offense looks like. My guess is it's like the 2021 offense on steroids, in the sense that if you don't even have Devontae, they're running the ball with Saquon. They're passing the ball to Goddard. Maybe Dotson gets a pass here and there, but really you're looking at the offensive line and the ground game as the key.
So, Zach, we didn't get to listen or watch Nick today because we were in show when he was talking to the media. But yesterday on WIP, made a little bit of a blurb, newsworthy thing where he said, yeah, I'm going to, contribute to the play calling at times in his new role as CEO coach. Did the idea of the play calling teamwork come up today at all in the press conference? Did he elaborate any more on that?
Yeah, it came up quite a bit. There are a lot of questions about that collaboration, and he compares it. He's football's a team sport, and he spoke in those terms. And I'm not dismissing what Nick said. I personally think this is an overblown storyline, and I'll get to that in a second. But to answer the question of what he said is that he's still like around the offense. He's not like he's not in charge of it, but they collaborate. I spoke to Kellen Moore yesterday. He spoke about the fact that this has been kind of this has always kind of been the case, that they discuss these things during the week. I think so. My opinion here is this is being overstated. I think that Nick I think Nick knew that play was going to be under scrutiny after the fourth down play.
That's what I said Sunday, that he'd fall on the sword for his guys, even if they did call
He's fallen on the sword.
Yeah.
And look, he might have said, let's go for the fourth down here. Because he has this and the fourth down. He might have said, let's go with the Saquon play. But I think there's been this idea since then that there's like these like Nick against Kellen type thing. This is Kellen Moore's offense. And I think Nick, I think Nick has like accepted that, acknowledged that, and like it would be a stretch when you say embrace that. But this is Kellen Moore's offense. Kellen Moore calls the plays. Kellen Moore puts the game plan together. Everyone I talk to tells me this is Kellen Moore's offense. And so, yeah, I think that I get why it's a source of intrigue. Les Bowen had a good column about it yesterday on allphly.com. But I don't think this is going to be like the type of thing where you're wondering, was that a Nick play? Was that a Kellen play? This is a Kellen Moore offense.
ZB, you mentioned Fred Johnson earlier, and I was talking to Jamie about the clip where everybody's saying, hell yeah, Fred, when he's talking about crying on the Saquon run. Can you kind of expand? I had no idea he seems like such a popular guy in the locker room, and really, like, why would I, right? Because he's been behind the scenes. But as somebody who's been around him for a little while, can you kind of expand on why that is the case? It seems like.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. A likable guy, like a real gregarious personality. He's joking, he has fun back there, but also because of his story. So he's someone he kind of bounced around a bit. He was almost out of football, and he has said that Jeff Stoutland is the reason why he's still playing. Jeff Stoutland saw something in him. Jeff Stoutland made him believe that he was still an NFL player. He said he was on the verge of not playing anymore. And Jeff Stoutland, I spoke to Stout 2 weeks ago about it. And Stout spoke about how players need someone who believes in them, right? And he believed in Fred Johnson. And behind the scenes, he's someone who has really endeared himself within the organization. Nick Sirianni said back in August that Fred Johnson improved over the offseason as much as anyone on the team. Just to give you an example, he was a futures contract player 2 years ago, and he earned a contract extension during the preseason. And it was the first time he really had kind of that security. This was the preseason 2023. And then he continued to improve this past year to the point that he's their swing tackle now. But in terms of the personality, yeah, he's in the locker room. He's like, well, I mean, I don't want to compare it to Garrett Stubbs, but there is like he's value added in the room, and that's kind of the way that I would explain it.
We will momentarily be saying goodbye to our Roku viewers. So everybody that was on that platform, thanks for checking in. Zach, we'll let you go in 1 second. But Sunday could be a foul weather game. Did Nick talk the effects of Helene are being felt all up and down Florida? I think Sunday projected thunderstorms. Can't control the weather, but did Nick have any 2 cents on playing in bad weather football games? Did he bring up any high school coaches or T-ball coaches that love foul weather games? Did he talk about that at all?
So that did not come up today.
Okay.
Now,
I didn't know if Coach
Greg
Dan
Allman
over in Haddonfield really loved, playing in the rain.
So
muddy.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to get to that in a second here, because I'm going to defend Nick Sirianni, because I know that's become a popular punching bag thing on talk radio. I'll get to that. Okay. But no, I actually, the reports out of Tampa are that the weather's it's bad right now. It's gonna be bad the next 24 to 48 hours, but that it'll be clearing out by Saturday and Sunday, like the heavy stuff. So look, whenever the Eagles are in Tampa, it seems like it's raining.
Yeah.
But I know that sports writers, in addition to covering a team, also play doctors and meteorologists on social media. I'm only going based on what the Tampa reporters are saying. But, the Tampa reporters are saying that it's going to clear out by then. Now, look, Nick doesn't need me to stump for him here, okay? But I do want to provide some insight on this, because I think I've gotten to know Nick a bit over the past few years. He does this sometimes as a way of showing appreciation for people he feels deserve appreciation, using his forum to do it. Every time that he'll mention his buddy Tom Langworthy's high school team.
Oh yeah.
In Jamestown, New York, and he does this as a shout out to them. He'll mention his niece's volleyball team, him mentioning the Little League coach. Could you imagine how that Little League coach must feel when the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles mentions you? He's done this for the Haddonfield High School coach, and he talks about connection, right? Yeah. And this is part of what makes him. This is why players like him often, is because he has a real natural way of connecting with people, and one of the ways that he does it is he'll go out of his way to show appreciation for kind of people behind the scenes, or people who don't get a lot of credit, and that's why he brings it up. He's not literally saying coaching the Eagles is like coaching his son's high school football, or I'm sorry, his son's Little League baseball, but. Yeah, and by the way, he's looking for coaching tips I should say coaching tips. That'll be taken the wrong way. He's looking for different nuggets everywhere. Now, the so what, now what? Jalen Hurts has used that expression multiple times. I don't think that's the first time Nick has heard that expression, but I think that he wanted to give some love to his son's Little League coach, and I think that's awesome. And I have a story coming out either tomorrow or next week during the bye week. I got to figure out the right timing of it on allphly.com, because I don't want him to get lost in the injury news, but I have to make sure that it's still topical. But a little gesture that he did behind the scenes that went a really long way with some of the people in the building. And I pointed out because it becomes, I know it's the easiest thing on talk radio to make fun of him mentioning a Little League coach, but I think if you take a step back and you kind of look at why he does it, there might be more to it than him actually turning to Coach Dan and saying all right, how do I motivate?
What would you do here on 4th and 2, Coach Dan? I need some inspiration.
Yeah, exactly.
No, Zach, I mean, the reality of the situation is a large part of why he got this job was because of his emotional intelligence and kind of bringing people together. And whether it's falling on a sword for Kellen Moore or covering up that whatever it is, he's an emotionally intelligent guy that knows how to, seed and sow relationships on personal levels. So it's not a bad thing, but it's a very funny thing to hear a week 3 press conference and Coach Dan from Haddonfield getting the shout out.
Yeah, now you're absolutely right. Now let me say this. Now this isn't the Coach Dan thing, but he brings this up a lot with his high school friends. He'll mention high school players. think about your buddies from LaSalle or your buddies from St. Joe's Prep, and say you're in a national spotlight one day, and you bring up you bring that guy up, right? Like what that would do for him. I was listening now. If I can mention another podcast, I was listening to Matthew Stafford interview on Part of My Take over the summer, and
Real
like he
guys,
mentioned, and he mentioned like the him and Clayton Kershaw get all this attention. But he's actually like the best athlete was this other guy.
Sure.
And how cool would it have been for that other guy? And so that's like I've literally spoken to people back in Nick Sirianni's hometown who absolutely love it and like appreciate that. And their interpretation of it is like, this guy hasn't gotten big time. This guy remembers exactly where he's coming from. And I think that's part of why he does it.
It's awesome stuff. Nick will always be a polarizing figure in Philadelphia, as any coach of the team will be. ZB, great stuff. I'm sure we can read all about your news and notes and observations on allphly.com. And again, congrats on the book. I know how hard you worked on it. I know you're getting sick of the book pub, but it's a big week for the Berman family. It was awesome to see it come all together. So congrats again, man.
It really means a lot. I am trying to promote the book as much as I can, but also
it's a fine line,
by no means would I ever. Yeah, I don't want to ever compare myself to Jason Kelce, but like I don't want to get to the point where like people are like, all right, stop mentioning this book, right? We get that you wrote a book, right? So but I am. It is available wherever books are sold, by the way. I just want to make sure that is clear.
That's
Zach,
great.
You're not in the same ballpark as Kelce right now.
I know that. Trust me. If I am, I need to go to Vince's office right now and renegotiate my contract. So
no, I'm talking about in terms of being overexposed. You're not in the same
I know. Yeah, I got you. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
All right, Zach. We'll talk to you soon, buddy. Thanks for checking in.
Talk soon.
See ya. He's the best, isn't he?
Jason Kelce?
By the way, I have a Jason Kelce, Kelly Green jersey. I love Jason Kelce. I have the Mummer bobblehead. It's a lot.
Does he
it's
say
everywhere.
No? Does he say no?
No. I mean, Wawa commercials, cereal commercials, soup commercials, Monday Night Football, the podcast. Like, I think you said it week one when we were together. You're like, man, the Kelce that's not dating Taylor Swift is the overexposed Kelce. Help me make sense of this.
So I will say, I mean, again, it's unbelievable. I mean, it really, like, that statement that the one that's dating Taylor Swift is just so much less in the pop culture sports idea. I will say one counterpoint to Jason Kelce being overexposed, despite the fact that he does all these commercials. I had a buddy who was down in Sea Isle a few weeks ago, and just walking on the promenade, Jason Kelce with his kids, nobody was bothering him. He was just being kind of a normal dad, just taking his kids to the beach. So
my cousin down in Sea Isle lives on the block next to him, and they see him regularly down there. And they said people come up to him and his family on the beach all the time, and he's gracious and awesome and takes pictures with all the kids. I mean, he's the best. Yeah. It's a lot of Jason Kelce.
I'm sure he would,
agree with us.
He would deal with all of the overexposure. No, I'm sorry. He would deal with all the people coming up to him and just all the trappings of fame and all that stuff. I will say, though, my buddy said it was actually really nice. He was just taking his daughters to the beach and nobody cared. Like, just let him do his thing.
It's very cool stuff. So I had 3 news and notes around the NFL as we're getting out of here. Real quick, our man Dougie P.
Oh, my God.
Hot seat, huh?
Oh, my God.
Is he going to make it through week 5?
I didn't know if he was going to make it through the first half the other night.
I was really, really dumb, Rich, and I bet the Jaguars on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, that was dumb.
That was real dumb.
That's fair. I cannot believe. I mean, first off, he's still got this thing where Press Taylor is still like very much involved, and it's so funny
is
that
he's unable to bring his a better staff in. Like, I don't get it.
Do you think? I mean, obviously he just has that degree of loyalty to Press Taylor. Do you just think like? He's like, I owe this guy. Philly special. like this was the guy. I don't think he can design an offense week in and week out, but man, I mean, he made me a legend in one of the big sports cities for the rest of my life. I can move back there if I want, and I will never
hang my head high.
I will never buy another meal or whatever. Yeah, they stink. Also, Trevor Lawrence.
What's the deal with it? He's mid, right?
The football hipsters love him. They just,
I've never been impressed by him.
Jalen Hurts is, I know he drives us crazy on a week in, week out basis. I'm sorry. Jalen Hurts, as of now, has A, accomplish more, and B, is better on a week-to-week basis
Absolutely.
than Trevor Lawrence. And it's really
not even close.
Question,
not even close.
That's
the two other news and notes I had. Looks like the NFC East got two phenomenal rookies here in Malik Neighbors and Jaden Daniels. Did you catch Jaden Daniels on Monday night? Because forget the arm. Like, the arm obviously looked the part. How calm, cool, and collected that kid was leading the Commanders on a game-winning drive at the end of the game. I was like, damn, Jaden Daniels is going to be in the NFC East for a long time.
It's unfortunate. He looks really good now, and I think that the stats are pretty crazy. They have not punted since week 1. I believe. Now, in fairness, like, they played the Giants and the Bengals. That defense looks like it really, really stinks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I caught the end of the game because I was watching, as you were, most of the Phillies locker room celebration after it was over.
Well, I was there, in person taking selfies.
Apparently,
I just had to get back real quick to my house.
14
miles away.
You're able to apparate in between.
Yes, but I switched over right towards the end of the game, like you did, I'm sure.
Here and
and I went, damn,
what a great ball that was, and he got smoked on that play.
Yeah.
Slid in, perfect throw. Terry McLaurin is obviously somebody who's been good for a long time, but it doesn't really matter because the defense stinks and the quarterbacks also stink. The organization stinks. So he looks like he's good. The one thing I will say about Daniels moving forward, it's not ideal that he looks good. He does need to stop taking so many big hits.
He looks like Devontae Smith, like slender-wise. Like, dude is tiny.
And he cannot take – I'm not saying the hit that he took staying in the pocket and making that throw. Okay, that's one you got to make.
That's a game winner,
on a money down. He, in the first couple weeks, made some amazing runs, but it reminded me, honestly, of Michael Vick just, like, not sliding. And I don't think you can take that level of punishment over a 16-game schedule. But – He looks really good. I hate to admit it. He looks
and
good.
Baldy said Malik Neighbors is the best rookie the Giants have had in over a decade. This guy looks like, another version of kind of Odell-ish.
And I would say good for them, and he looks like a very good player. I don't think he's going to matter until the quarterback changes in terms of actually winning games. But, yeah. No, I drafted him second in fantasy. He won the week for me last week.
Yeah, he was an absolute monster.
He's a monster.
And then the final note I had was Todd McShay ripping Travis Kelce for being out of shape yesterday. Said the decline of Travis Kelce is here and he blames Taylor Swift.
So I don't think
Swifties are going to get all over McShay.
See, this is the same thing that happened last year. The Chiefs were bad at the end of the season, and everybody's like, "Oh man, this Taylor Swift thing or whatever." And then guess what? Travis Kelce's catching every ball in the Super Bowl, and they're winning.
And it doesn't matter.
See, I don't think it's
the Chiefs are 3-0 without him.
He very well might be out of shape. I don't know, and it could be because of the Taylor Swift thing. Travis Kelce needs to and I think this is smart. He's load managing his way through the season.
Sure,
like he knows we got Patrick Mahomes. Again, I don't think the Chiefs have been all that impressive through 3 games, and yet they are 3-0.
Let Rice and Xavier Worthy and those guys burn themselves out now.
And they have obviously the infrastructure. Anthony's guy Spags. Honestly, I think is the best defensive coordinator in the league. Like that guy, I think now he has the talent to really have a dominant defense, but he's always done more with less. Great start. But I think Travis Kelce's load managing. I think by the time we get to November, December, into January, he's going to be Travis Kelce again.
I tend to agree with you. Thanks to everybody. We did have a super chat we wanted to get to before we get out of here. And my old man eyes always struggle to read through the lights here. But thank you, Chase Daniel Plainview, who says, Kellen's last play call as a Cowboy had Zeke playing center.
One of my favorite play calls ever.
Above dumb play calls. That was one of the worst play calls I think I've ever seen in my life.
It's one of my favorite play calls I've ever seen in my life, considering who the team was. I remember the Colts tried something stupid when McAfee was the punter.
Yes, they did. And wasn't that no line, everybody out wide, and it was just McAfee in the center or something?
But by the way, Zeke was the center on his last play, and now 2 years later, he's back to being the kind of the featured back in Dallas, and they are 1-2.
Yeah, that's pretty nice to see. I'm not gonna.
That's a great point, though. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that is absolutely hilarious. Thank you, Chase Daniel Plainview, and thanks to Vinny Curry for joining the show. Thank you to Zach Berman for checking in. Buy Zach's book. It's a great gift for every Eagles fan in your life. And thank you to everybody that hung out with us today, whether live or on podcast form. We appreciate you. You can spend your time anywhere, but you're spending it here with the PHLY Eagles podcast, and we love you for it. For JP behind the scenes, for our 2 guests, for Rich Hoffman, I'm Jamie Lynch. I will be back on Sunday. We will be back together next Wednesday here on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Be well, everyone. We'll see you soon.
We all silly like the mayor.